And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. Breaking news this hour, sweeping and increasingly desperate. That's from a new filing from Special Counsel Jack Smith describing the new details of former President Trump's effort to overturn the 2020 election loss.
Never before seen evidence in Special Prosecutor Jack Smith's election case against former President Donald Trump. This is a 165-page filing.
So when it appeared as though the events on January 6th were leading to be a violent effort to overthrow the election results, one of Trump's campaign employees, also an agent and a co-conspirator of Trump, literally said, quote, "Make them riot. Do it."
I know what you're thinking. Surely this week couldn't get any worse for the former president turned convicted felon. Well, that was until Jack Smith entered the chat. Trump's October surprise isn't a surprise. In fact, it's of his own making, and don't let MAGA world tell you otherwise. In case you missed it, here's what happened. In the January 6th election interference case in front of Judge Chutkan in D.C., Jack Smith filed a 180-page brief this week, chock full of incriminating evidence in order to prove why Donald Trump is not subject to the presidential immunity that the Supreme Court laid out in July, and why he should be allowed to be prosecuted. This is a preliminary question. This part goes first, because if he's immune, then he shouldn't be prosecuted. Trump's lawyers tried to do anything they could to not have this immunity question go first, because the immunity question allows the government to lay out all of the evidence of what Trump did in order to interfere with the election on January 6th, because they have to show that he's not immune. And this filing deadline was this week. Trump lawyers have October 10th to respond in their filing why they think Trump should have immunity. So this is all coming out in October. And if they're trying to say, and we know we're going to hear it from Trump, that this is election interference, let's be reminded the whole point of why we're talking about immunity is because Trump requested immunity from the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court didn't take that question up right away. Oh no, they took up the Colorado ballot question right away and ruled in favor of Trump, even though Trump technically wasn't a party, but the outcome was favorable to Trump. But the immunity question, they waited. They waited a long time to issue that opinion. It was one of the last opinions they issued. And so Judge Chutkan is just now getting to the issue because she just now got the opinion. She just now asked the parties to brief how they should deal with this immunity issue. And so basically it's because of Trump, then it's happening in October. So how is Trump and his lawyers responding to this? Well, they're not taking it very well, because this 180-page document, including 30 exhibits, is going to be highly damaging to Trump. And right now it's sealed. It's sealed because it's going to be up to the judge how much of that is allowed into the public, because a lot of that is sensitive information, whether or not some of it will prejudice the jury. So we're going to see some of it, but not all of it. And the parties get to decide how much of it should be redacted. But Trump's lawyers aren't being reasonable about this, of course, and they're asking for documents. They're saying, we need to delay all this. We need to delay all this. Not because of the election. No, they're not admitting to that, but because we don't have certain documents. Jack Smith did not take that lightly, because he knows, they know, they have all the documents. The kind of documents they're asking for are things that are already in Trump's possession, that Trump has already had for a year. And Jack Smith makes that very clear in his brief. He's done with Trump and his lawyers and all of their misinformation, let's say. And he says, quote, talking about Trump, he asks for multiple categories of information that he has had for more than a year, including reports and transcripts for 2 interviews of a particular witness, text messages for specific individuals, and presidential daily diaries, all of which he received in the government's first discovery production on August 11, 2023, as is evident from the government's detailed source logs that Jack Smith put in his filing. The fact is, Trump lawyers want this delay because they don't want this coming out before the election, but it's because of them that it's coming out so close to the election, and they already have all the documents they need. And Jack Smith writes in that filing, they're asking for these things because they want more delays. The delay here is what is so crucial. And what's so important here is that this case in particular has to do with the election, the peaceful transfer of power. So having voters know before they cast their vote exactly what Trump did or did not do, he gets to say that in his opposition brief, what he didn't do, as to do with a peaceful transition of power. That actually seems like vital information for people to know. But regardless of that, just how legal cases go, this is very standard. And again, the delay was because of the Supreme Court issuing their opinion so late. The other thing that Jack Smith is paying attention to is the fact that Donald Trump in his rallies keeps on talking about how he lost the election. As you know, part of his defense is going to be that he had a good faith basis, thinking that he won the election. And he was just trying to, as president, make sure that the laws were faithfully executed. This is going to be essentially his defense once it goes to trial. And so him admitting in these rallies that he lost is Jack Smith is going to be able to show that in court. Anything you say, as we know, as a criminal defendant can be used against you. And he just said yet again, he said, we lost by a whisker. He beat us from the basement. That quote is going to be used by Jack Smith in any trial, any motions, any arguments Jack Smith makes to show that Donald Trump knew that he lost and he tried to stop the peaceful transfer of power anyway. Now, what is going to come out in this document once we see it? We're going to see pieces of information that we have never seen before, because although the January 6th Congressional Committee collected quite a bit of information, they had limited power. They didn't use all their subpoena power. Some of their subpoenas were ignored. They weren't subpoenaing attorneys for him because there's attorney-client privilege, and they weren't going to decide as a Congress how much of that privilege can be pierced. You don't have attorney-client protection if it is an attorney. You're trying to help commit a crime with your client, but that determination is made by the court. So Congress, although they collected quite a bit of information January 6th, it's not even close to what the federal government is going to do. And we're hearing reporting that there's some key figures in the Trump circle that were interviewed and presented evidence to the grand jury. And those informations will be coming out most likely in this 180-page immunity document. And this is why Trump and his team is so badly trying to delay the filing. But remember, if he tries to claim election interference, it is because him and the Supreme Court got us to this point.
About the calls, the kinds of calls that came into the sit room back at the White House from Mike Pence's security detail. But we didn't know much in Mike Pence's own voice. We didn't know what he would say under oath as a witness in a criminal proceeding. But now we do. Let me read to you. I'll read first what made Lisa Rubin gasp. Why make everybody wait? From page 142, quote, upon receiving a phone call alerting him, Donald Trump, that Pence had been taken to a secure location, witness P15 rushed to the dining room to inform the defendant, Donald Trump, in hopes that the defendant, Donald Trump, would take action to ensure Mike Pence's safety. Instead, after this person delivered the news, the defendant, Donald Trump, looked at him and said only, quote, so what, Lisa?
The cavalierness with which Donald Trump received that news certainly is news to me. And it goes to Andrew's point about a number of the allegations here not being just things we've seen before in the January 6th committee and in the transcripts that were generated by that committee's investigation. There's a whole lot of new content here, Nicole, and that is just one part of it.
You're wondering, yes, Trump's words can and will be used against him in a court of law. We saw it in New York. His tweets that his payments to Michael Cohen were hush money payments certainly came in and helped him get a conviction. And what is he saying now that's going to hurt him? Well, he keeps on talking about how he lost in 2020, and that will be used by Jack Smith in his January 6th election interference trial because it shows he knows he lost the election and tried to stop the peaceful transfer of power anyway. So let's hear the kind of thing that's going to come in as evidence, his own words.
I was told if I got the same number of votes as the first time, 63 million, you can't lose, sir. We got many millions of votes more than that. Nobody's ever gotten more votes sitting president. And they beat us by a whisker. It's the only thing they're good at. They're good at cheating in elections. They're good at nothing else, believe me. They're certainly not good at policy. But they beat us by a whisker. They beat us just by a little whisker. He beat us from the basement.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.